Welcome to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast, your weekly update of business news and issues from around Cumbria. Find out how we support new business and help existing businesses to grow and flourish at cumbriachamber.co.uk. Now here's the Chamber's Business Engagement Manager, Julian Whittle, with this week's episode.
Hello, I'm here with Amy Johnston, a business services and software specialist with the accountancy firm David Allen. And we're here to talk about making tax digital. Now, this will require businesses, and the definition includes buy-to-let landlords, to use computer software to maintain their accounting records and, crucially, to send quarterly updates digitally to HM Revenue and Customs. It starts on April the 1st. No, that isn't a joke. It really does start on April the 1st, although initially just for VAT. Amy, explain exactly what's happening.
So Making Tax Digital for VAT is the first phase for Making Tax Digital, and this takes effect from the 1st of April. Businesses that are VAT registered and have a turnover of over £85,000 per year will need to comply for their first VAT period that begins after the 1st of April.
Right.
So for example, those who have a VAT quarter end of the 30th of April 2019, they will need to use some appropriate software from the 1st of May.
I see. So what do businesses need to have in place? What information will they need to keep in a digital format?
So in order to comply with the legislation, businesses must use compliant software that offers a digital link to HM Revenue and Customs. Transactional data should be input into the software, for example, sales invoices, purchase invoices, bank information. This means that HM Revenue and Customs will be able to view the transactional data that's held behind each box of the VAT return.
I see. And if you're a business, you need to sign up for it. How do you do that? What information do you need in order to sign up?
So most businesses will already have a Government Gateway user ID login. Mm-hmm. So they need to use that current Government Gateway ID that they currently use to submit VAT returns, and they need to activate Making Tax Digital. For companies and partnerships, they'll require their UTR tax reference number. And for sole traders, they will need passport details for ID purposes. But once it's been set up, you can activate your Making Tax Digital in your software and you're good to go.
Now, you mentioned that businesses have to use compatible software for transferring the data. Now, I know that HM Revenue and Customs have been running a voluntary Making Tax Digital pilot since October of last year. I wonder, has this highlighted any software compatibility problems, and are there particular software packages that you're recommending to clients?
So the software packages that we most frequently work with, I haven't experienced any compatibility issues. As a firm, David Allen are advising on software packages based on the individual business circumstances and how the software can best fit the needs of that business. The most popular software providers are Xero, QuickBooks and Sage. Sage Line 50, however, is only compatible if you're currently on version 24 or above, and if you're paying by subscription. And if you're not paying by subscription, then an add-on module would be required for that to be compliant.
Yeah, I think I heard something about there being problems with some Sage software, so that's what it'll be. That's fine. But if a business, I know some businesses use spreadsheets to keep records. Will they be possible for them to carry on doing that?
Yes and no. I know that doesn't give you a very good answer. A number of software providers have released what they're calling bridging software. So that means that you can continue to use your spreadsheets, and an API platform will come in from the software to make that link up to HMRC. However, it is a bridging the gap software. It's a short-term solution, and the transactional information isn't available to HM Revenue and Customs. They haven't announced how long short-term is, but it won't be around forever.
Right. Now, there's also a 6-month deferment for some types of business who won't have to start making tax digital until October. Who's covered by that, Amy?
So HMRC has put the deferral in place for those who they have described as more complex businesses. So that includes trusts, not-for-profit organisations that aren't companies, which does include some charities, VAT divisions, VAT groups, public sector entities that are required to provide additional information. So this is people like NHS trusts and government departments, local authorities, public corporations, traders that are based overseas, those that are required to make payments on account for VAT, and also annual accounting scheme users.
Ah, right, okay, fair enough. Now, the Cumbria Chamber is affiliated to the British Chambers of Commerce, who recently called on the Chancellor to delay the start of Making Tax Digital because, well, we ran a survey and it showed that businesses aren't ready. A worrying 24% of all the businesses that would potentially be affected hadn't even heard of Making Tax Digital, and only 10% felt that they were well informed. Now, from your experience talking to businesses in Cumbria, how ready do you think they are?
Well, it was only yesterday I was reading an article that stated that 70,000 businesses in the country have signed up to Making Tax Digital, which is a worrying 6% of the people that need to.
Right, yeah.
But to be honest, that did shock me. We've worked hard within Cumbria to ensure that businesses understand the changes, and we've helped our clients to implement them by providing software and training. So I do believe that Cumbria is ahead of the national average.
Good. What's the stick? What will happen to businesses that don't comply? Will they face fines or other penalties?
So HMRC have said that the first 12 months is going to be a soft landing period. So as long as a business can show that they've attempted to comply with the legislation, then they won't give an additional penalty for not doing Making Tax Digital. But, and it is quite a big but, the standard VAT penalty regime is still going to apply. So if you've got late submission of your VAT return or late payment, you're still going to go into the default surcharge regime and start attracting those surcharge amounts. They have also said that a points-based penalty system is going to be introduced for Making Tax Digital, but they haven't released full details.
Let's see. And, I know David Allen are running seminars between now and May the 1st. Now, interestingly, you're doing separate events for businesses in different sectors. I think you've got one in agriculture, one for leisure and tourism, construction, retail, and a generic SME session. I wondered why you're doing it that way. Why doing it on a sector-specific basis? I mean, do different sectors have different issues with Making Tax Digital?
So we understand that different business sectors keep their accounting records in very different ways, and therefore I felt it was important to show the software demonstrations, most importantly, in a way that's applicable to each sector. So if people have an understanding and they've got a confidence in the software that they're going to be using to comply, and talking to them in a language that's applicable to their sector, hopefully they should feel a lot more comfortable with it.
I say, yeah, fair enough. Now, you mentioned earlier that this affects businesses that are above the VAT threshold. Just for clarity, obviously there are some businesses whose turnover is below the 85,000 a year threshold, but they are VAT registered because there are reasons for them to register voluntarily. Will they be affected?
So those who currently have a voluntary VAT registration in place will need to comply from the 1st of April 2020.
Right.
So next year. However, it is important for those businesses to keep an eye on their 12-month turnover, as if they go over 85,000 between now and next April, they need to comply from their next VAT return.
I see. Now, Making Tax Digital requires businesses to submit information quarterly to HM Revenue and Customs. Can they provide information more frequently than that? And what would be the advantage in doing so?
So some businesses will submit monthly VAT returns at the moment, and they will continue to do so under Making Tax Digital. The advantage of monthly returns is that those who are in a VAT repayment position will receive monthly repayments rather than quarterly.
Yeah.
So it's improving the cash flow. I mean, the beauty of using any of these approved software packages is that you can keep the accounting records up to date a lot easier. So just using the software itself is going to assist tax planning, budgeting, going to help them understand their business a bit better.
Okay. And what about mistakes? Because we're all human. How do businesses correct errors under Making Tax Digital?
So VAT errors are going to be corrected in the same way that they currently are. So if it's £10,000 or less, it's done on the next VAT return or the return after it's been found. If it's more than that, then a VAT error disclosure form's done. When your software is using the Making Tax Digital module, there's going to be adjustment boxes, and you can put the amount and a narrative in there, so that will correctly account for them.
Now, initially, this is purely for VAT. Do we know when Making Tax Digital is going to be extended to cover income tax and corporation tax?
HM Revenue and Customs has been a little bit coy on exact dates. It's not been finalised. However, the earliest that this is going to happen will be April 2021, but we are keeping our social media channels up to date with any announcements.
Right, so it's a watch this space situation there, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Are there any websites that you'd recommend to businesses that to find out more information?
So our David Allen website has a dedicated Making Tax Digital area, so that includes all of the updates and announcements and little guides. But the gov.uk website is a really valuable resource as well. It explains Making Tax Digital in more depth, and it also provides an approved software list.
Yeah, I was having a look at that. It does look a good resource. That's excellent. Thanks very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce podcast. You can find out more about how we're supporting Cumbrian businesses at cumbriachamber.co.uk and cumbriagrowthhub.co.uk. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we'll have another episode for you next week.